Today, the world is mourning the loss of one of the most extraordinary voices for animals in nature. Jane Goodall, the legendary primatologist and conservationist who dedicated her life to studying chimpanzees and protecting the planet, has passed away at the age of 91. News of her death has sparked an outpouring of tributes from scientists, environmentalists, world leaders, and everyday people who were inspired by her work. Goodall wasn't just a scientist. She was a global icon. For over 6 decades, she showed us that animals are not just creatures we observe, but beings with emotions, families, and intelligence. Her groundbreaking discoveries in Tanzania changed the way humans see themselves in relation to the animal kingdom. As the news spreads, people everywhere are remembering her not only for her scientific achievements, but also for her tireless activism. From the jungles of Africa to the halls of the United Nations, Jane Goodall carried a simple yet powerful message that every individual can make a difference. Her passing marks the end of an era, but her legacy continues to live on. And today we're taking a closer look at her incredible journey, from a curious young girl in England to one of the most influential figures in the history of science and conservation. So while Jane Goodall's passing is heartbreaking, it also reminds us of the remarkable life she lived. To truly honor her memory, let's step back in time and explore how an ordinary young girl became a world-changing pioneer. Jane Goodall was born on April 3, 1934, in London, England. From the very beginning, she was a child filled with wonder about the natural world. There's a famous story about how young Jane once disappeared for hours, only to be found quietly observing how hens laid eggs. That curiosity, simple, patient, and deeply observant, would become the foundation of her life's work. Growing up during World War II, Jane didn't have the easiest childhood. Her family faced hardships, but her mother Van supported her dreams. Unlike many parents at the time, Van encouraged Jane's fascination with animals, even gifting her a stuffed toy chimpanzee named Jubilee when she was just a toddler. Many people thought it was a strange gift, but Jane treasured it, and perhaps it was an early sign of the destiny that awaited her. As a teenager, Jane dreamed of going to Africa. She loved reading adventure books like Tarzan of the Apes and Dr. Dolittle. She didn't come from a wealthy background and couldn't afford university right away, but that didn't stop her. Instead, she studied secretarial work and later worked as a secretary and waitress, saving money for the trip that would change her life. And here's the cliffhanger. What Jane didn't know was that her journey to Africa would soon connect her with the man who would open the door to her groundbreaking career. In 1957, at the age of 23, Jane finally set foot in Kenya. She had been invited by a school friend, but destiny had bigger plans. Through a series of introductions, she met the famous paleoanthropologist, Dr. Louis Leakey. Leakey was fascinated by Jane's passion and intelligence, even though she lacked a formal scientific degree. He believed that her patience and open mind made her the perfect candidate to study wild chimpanzees, something no one had attempted in such depth before. In 1960, Jane began her research in Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania. At first, it was incredibly challenging. She was alone, living in a tent, battling illness, and often facing isolation. Locals were skeptical of a young British woman living in the jungle, but Jane's determination never wavered. Then came the breakthrough moment. Jane observed a chimpanzee she named David Greybeard using a stick to fish termites out of a mound. This was revolutionary. Until then, scientists believed that only humans made and used tools. Jane's discovery shattered that idea and forced the scientific world to rethink the line that separated humans from animals. Her observations went even further. She showed that chimpanzees had emotions, social bonds, and even conflicts. They kissed, hugged, and formed family groups. They could be nurturing, but also violent. It was a portrait of life that mirrored our own in astonishing ways. Word of her discoveries spread quickly, and Jane Goodall became a scientific star. She was invited to pursue a PhD at Cambridge University, despite not having a bachelor's degree. At Cambridge, she faced criticism. Some professors dismissed her for naming chimpanzees instead of numbering them, or for describing their personalities. But Jane held her ground. She believed science should not strip animals of their individuality. By the 1970s and 80s, Jane had become more than just a researcher. She became a public figure, writing books, giving lectures, and appearing in documentaries that brought the magic of chimpanzee life to millions of people. Her work not only changed science, but also inspired a generation of conservationists. But Jane's journey wasn't without struggles. As human activity expanded, the chimpanzee population in Africa began to decline dramatically due to deforestation, hunting, and disease. What had once been a thriving community of wild chimps was shrinking before her eyes. Jane realized she couldn't just be a researcher, she had to become an activist. In 1977, she founded the Jane Goodall Institute, dedicated to wildlife research, conservation, and community-centered development. She also launched Roots and Shoots, a global youth program that empowers young people to take action for animals, people, and the environment. Through the years, Jane became a globe-trotting advocate. She spent more than 300 days a year traveling, giving talks, and urging governments and individuals to act. Whether she was speaking to school children or world leaders, her message was always the same. Every single person can make a difference. Her activism gained international recognition. She was appointed a UN Messenger of Peace, received numerous honors including the Kyoto Prize, the Templeton Prize, and was named Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Yet despite the fame, Jane always remained humble, saying that she was simply a messenger for the chimpanzees in the natural world. On a personal level, Jane's life was filled with both joy and heartbreak. She married twice, first to a Dutch photographer, Hugo van Loek, with whom she had a son, Hugo, nicknamed Grub. Later, she married Derek Bryson, a Tanzanian parliamentarian who sadly passed away from cancer in 1980. Despite personal losses, Jane always carried on with resilience, channeling her energy into her work. Even in her later years, Jane never slowed down. Into her 80s, she continued to travel, lecture, and inspire. Her gentle voice, wise words, and tireless spirit made her not just a scientist, but a symbol of hope in a world facing climate change and biodiversity loss. And now, with her passing at the age of 91, the world says goodbye to a true pioneer. But as Jane herself often reminded us, the future is still in our hands. Her legacy lives on in the forests she helped protect, in the millions of young people inspired by her programs, and in every person who chooses compassion over indifference. Jane Goodall once said, "What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make." Her story reminds us that one person's curiosity can change the way humanity sees itself. And now it's up to us to continue her mission.